Hello everyone, this is Sam Teto, the registered nurse in South Africa. Today I want us to look at the cardiovascular system. I just made few sample questions and I provided the answers as well. So it's just a technique or a way for you to understand how to tackle the question if such question comes through. All right, so let's get started now. All right, so the first question here, it says, name and describe three anatomical layers of the blood vessels. Now, always imagine things and always have the diagram next to you. If you don't have it in your book, you can always check on Google, search in Google, you'll find the layers of the blood vessels. All right, here, the first layer that I'm starting here from the outer side of the blood vessel, outer side going to the inner side. All right, so the first one is tunica. You can say tunica, it can say tunica, it's tunica adventitia. What is this layer? This layer is an outer layer of, and this layer is of fibrous tissue. Okay, so if you are talking about outer layer, now you'll know that, oh, that's a tunica adventitia. And what is its function now? Remember that the question can come in different way. They can maybe in the higher order questions or in just a simple MCQ or multiple choice question, they can just ask or mention the function of the tunica adventitia. You need to know that its function, it is to protect and to give support to the blood vessel. So that structure of the blood vessel, it is supported by the tunica adventitia. Second one is tunica media. This is the middle layer. Remember that I said we are naming this from the outer to the inner side. All right, so the tunica media, this is the middle layer, and its function, it actually contains the smooth muscles as well as the elastic tissue. If you think of elastic tissue, clearly this is the layer that is responsible for the elasticity or for a stretchability of the blood vessel, depending on the amount of blood or pressure that is exerted by the blood inside the lumen of the blood vessel. All right, the last one, which is the inner layer, it's called tunica intima, but also its term, it's also the named as endothelium layer. So this is the word I normally use, or terminology I normally use, endothelium layer. So this is an inner layer. Remember that we started with the outer one. This is now an inner layer, and this layer is the one that is in contact with the blood that is flowing through. Okay, so its function is actually allows the smooth flow or the easiness of flowing or of flow of the blood as it passes through. Okay, so it also acts as a barrier, so it prevents blood from seeping into the tissue, because once there is a trauma to this, the blood will leak out, or it will leak into the tissues, then end up having some sort of hematoma and other stuff, or edema. And the thickness of this layer, it's very thin. It's very thin. Its layer is just of one epithelial cell, just one layer of epithelial cells. All right, the second question says, describe the valve cups or cusps and their function in blood flow. It depends how you pronounce this. The English is not our mother language, you know that, so you just pronounce it the way that you feel comfortable with. All right, so when you describe the valve cups and their function, valve cups are semilunar in shape, so they are just like half of a moon. Please Google this or search this in Google so that you see exactly if you do not have a picture of it. All right, so they are concave, so their concavity is toward the heart. So, and these valves, they are normally found in the legs or let's say lower extremities. And it prevents, okay, these valves are not present in small and large veins such as in thorax and abdomen. Okay, so the function of this valve caps, its function is to prevent the backflow of blood. Remember that the blood is flowing back to the heart from the legs. Remember, when it's flowing like that, there is a force of gravity that is pulling everything to the ground. So also there is a difficulty in blood flow when there is a force of gravity exerted. So in order to prevent blood to flow back, then there are these valve caps that prevent the backflow of blood as it moves towards the heart, and this is obviously against the gravity. And another function of this, they ensure a one-way blood flow. Right. Number 3, name 3 great or great blood vessels found superiorly to the heart. Right. You look at the base of the heart. Always check the structure so that it's gonna be easy for you to remember what you have studied or what you have read or what you have watched. Always have a diagram or a picture so that you can always make some illustration or some markings for the easiness of your understanding. So at the base of the heart, or at the top part of the heart, remember superior means at the top. So at the top of the heart, you will find an aorta, which is the biggest artery in the body, and it contains a large amount of blood, which is oxygenated from the left ventricle. All right, so there is an aorta, there's a superior vena cava. Superior vena cava is also found at the base of the heart, or at the superior part of the heart. Remember, superior vena cava collects blood from the upper part of the body, the deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of the body. Aorta carries oxygenated blood. Right, and this superior vena cava, it's entering in the right atrium, because remember, right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the superior vena cava as well as the inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava means the blood, deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body. Then there is also the inferior part. It's not included under this question, because here they are asking the one that are at the top of the heart or base of the heart. Another one, the other great blood vessel found at the base of the heart is it's the pulmonary artery as well as the pulmonary vein. You know, you will recall that the pulmonary artery is the one that contains deoxygenated blood. In the case of cardiovascular, a pulmonary artery contains deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and the vein, pulmonary vein, contains oxygenated blood from the lungs into the left atrium. All right, so these are the 3 blood vessels or great blood vessels that are found at the base of the heart or superiorly to the heart. All right, then there is the number 4 says the heart is composed of 3 layers of tissue. Describe endocardium. Out of the 3 layers, this question picked 1 layer, then it expects you to describe it. All right, so the first one, the first description says it is an inner layer that lines the chambers and valves of the heart. So that's self-explanatory. It's the endo. Anything with endo, you must know that it talks of the inner part of the anatomical structure. Endo, endothelium, endocardium, endometrium, everything that has to do with the inner part of the anatomical structure that have the lumen, or that have the lumen or the space in it. Right. So now another one, it says it is a thin, smooth membrane that ensures smooth blood flow throughout the heart. Obviously, the blood needs to move in a smooth surface. So this endocardium layer, it is made up of a thin, smooth membrane, and it ensures the smooth blood flow. All right. Also, it consists of the flattened epithelial cells. It's very important to always read your book. Try reading it from the beginning, where they introduce you to cells, different tissues, and then organs, as well as the systems. But it's very important to understand the fundamental information of anatomy, because the cells will be discussed throughout the whole anatomy, or throughout the whole course of nursing or healthcare science. All right, so it consists of the flattened epithelial cells, and it's continuous with the lining of the blood vessels. If they are saying that endocardium is continuous with the lining of the blood vessels, remember the blood vessels we're talking about here mainly, it is the one that enters the heart there at the right atrium, as well as the one that enters the heart in the left atrium. There are two main blood vessels entering the heart in the right atrium. That is the inferior vena cava, which brings deoxygenated blood from the lower extremities or lower parts of the body, and there is also the one that is superior vena cava, that brings deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of the body. Both of those blood vessels, they enter the heart's chamber, which is the right atrium. They have the linings as well, which we named earlier on, that they are called endothelial lining or endothelial layer. So that endothelial layer is made up of the flattened epithelial cells. So that inner layer is continuous with the inner layer of the heart, which is only the name that changes now to be called endocardium, no longer like we called it earlier on. All right, okay, let's proceed. Number 6, describe the atrioventricular bangle, which is abbreviated normally as AV, so AV bangle. So now we are expected to describe the atrioventricular bangle. Remember, these anatomical terms or anatomy terminologies, they are normally consisting of different terms, so names of structures. If you look very well here, you will see that there is atria, this one, then there is ventri. So these this is taken from the name of the structure atrium. This is taken from the name of the structure ventricle. So they composed it to make one word or one terminology. So always have that in mind, that most of the terminologies you will see as it progresses or as you continue with your studies. All right, how do we define or describe the atrioventricular bangle? It is a mass of specialized fibers that originates from the atrioventricular node. It's very important for one to understand. First, go visit your book. In this case, my source is Ross and Wilson. So also visit your book, read, because you cannot just come read this alone. It needs someone that has already attempted to study, and now you are practicing with these questions. So it is a mass. Don't forget the word specialized fiber. It's a mass of the specialized fiber. So this is very important to note. All right, so you need to know where to find the atrioventricular node. Okay, so you will know when you're talking about sinoatrial node, there is a transmission of the impulses and all that. So it's very important for you to visit your book and understand this. Okay, the atrioventricular bangle passes through the fibrous ring that separates atria. Atria means two atrium. One is atrium, but once they are more than that, they are referred to atrium. So this the AV bangle passes through the fibrous ring, and that separates atria and ventricles. Then at the upper end of the ventricular septum, it divides into right and left bangle branches. Okay, so it's very important for you to look in the diagram so that you can relate and understand what they are trying to say, because once you try to imagine it without looking in the diagram, you'll really have the big problem as to what they are actually talking about. So, okay, right, so within the ventricular myocardium, the branches break up, okay, into fine fibers that are called Purkinje fiber. So when you look in your diagram, okay, in my book that I'm using here, I'm looking at the diagram. These Purkinje or fibers, I want you to know their significance in the heart or in the ventricular contraction. Okay, the atrioventricular bangle branches and Purkinje fibers transmit electrical impulses from the atrioventricular nodes to the apex of myocardium. Remember that initially there is a transmission of the signal from sinoatrial node. The signal reaches the atrioventricular node, and when the signal has reached the atrioventricular node, there will be an impulse generation or transmission that will take place, and this transmission of the impulse will be transmitted and it will be flowing through this bangle. And this AV bangle, it's gonna branch, okay, as they are saying here that bangle branches and Purkinje fibers transmit electrical impulses from the atrioventricular node to the apex of myocardium. So I didn't put the picture of the heart here to demonstrate this, but if you download or an image or you search in Google, you'll see what this whole explanation is talking of. All right, so when the signal, remember that the apex of the heart, it's got the right ventricle as well as the left ventricle. So this bangle is in the middle, in the septum. Okay, this is in the septum, and the signal have to cover both sides of the ventricle of the heart. So it has to go to the left ventricle and also the right ventricle. So that's why there is a need for this bangle to branch. Okay, so when they branch, as the bottom part of the or at the apex, to be specific, they will form those special fibers, which is called Purkinje fibers. The Purkinje fibers, they are the ones which will be responsible for the contraction. The heart, the apex of the heart will squeeze, will contract, and it then sweeps upward. So these Purkinje, the way they are structured, they bend at the bottom of the heart at the apex, then they go upward, covering the the whole part of the ventricles. Okay, so that if this impulse has reached them, they will be able to squeeze simultaneously both left and right ventricle. Okay, and when they squeeze or when they contract, they will then cause what we call a pumping of blood. Then now the blood will be pumped into the pulmonary artery and the aorta. All right. The blood that comes from the right ventricle is that deoxygenated blood. And I did mention earlier that the deoxygenated blood from the heart will go to the lungs or will reach the lungs through what we call pulmonary artery. So this pulmonary artery will be coming from the right atrium, okay, and it's going to it's taking deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Then there is also, when this contracts, there is blood in the left ventricle. When the apex contracts, the blood in the left ventricle will be expelled out through the aortic valve into the aorta. This one is an oxygenated blood, and it will leave the heart through the aorta. Okay, the next question says, name 3 stages of the cardiac cycle. It's atrial systole. Okay, the first important thing that you need to know is that the whole cycle, the cardiac cycle, takes 0.8 seconds. Okay, 0.8 seconds. So whatever happens here, it should take 0.8 seconds, the whole of it, the whole cycle. Okay, the first cycle, the first part of, or first stage of the cycle, remember there are 3. The first stage is atrial systole. What happens in an atrial systole? The contraction of the atria. So remember, this is very important for you to know generally before you even go straight about your books. The right atrium there are 4 chambers. There is right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, and the left ventricle. The right ventricle carries or receives deoxygenated blood from the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Okay. Then both these, okay, I'm talking of the blood that enters the heart for now. The left ventricle receives blood through the pulmonary vein, which contains oxygenated blood from the lungs. Pulmonary vein. So it enters the left atrium. Okay. Now, when both atrium or both atria are filled up or are full, there is a transmission of the impulses, signals that will result that the valves will now open up. There are valves which are atrioventricular valves. These atrioventricular valves are the valves that open for blood from the ventricle, from the atrium into the ventricle. So when the atria are full, the atrioventricular valves, the valves, will open for blood to enter the ventricles. Now, it means that when the right ventricle has received blood from the right atrium, it's now filled up as well. Also this side, blood from the left atrium will be opened to enter into the left ventricle. Okay, now the valve closes when the blood has entered in full capacity. Remember, we're talking of a person here who has no abnormality, who has no pathophysiology or pathology, someone who's just healthy, have normal functioning of the heart. So now the blood now have to leave the heart. So it will leave the heart. The blood from the right ventricle will leave the heart through the pulmonary artery. That blood will be going to the lungs. The blood that is now in the left ventricle will leave the heart through the aorta. So that's very important for you to know. Okay, so now atrial systole, contraction of the atrium, that takes 1 second, 0.1 second. Ventricular systole, contraction of the ventricles, it takes 0.3 seconds. Remember that this is because there must be transmission of the impulse, electrical impulse, from the atrioventricular node to the atrioventricular bundle to the Purkinje fiber. So it takes the long journey, or it is of course the long journey. Then after the contraction of the ventricle, which is called ventricular systole, all this systole, you must know, it has to do with contraction. Okay, then complete the third stage, complete cardiac diastole. This is the relaxation of the atria and the ventricles. All right, please note that here it's supposed to be 0.4, not 8. It's 0.4. Please forgive me on that, and please do erase that. This is not supposed to be 0.8, it's supposed to be 0.4 seconds, because remember, we say that this whole thing takes 0.8 seconds to complete. Therefore, we cannot say there is a stage that is that is of this length. That could mean that the person has some pathological problem or pathology in their hearts. All right, so this is how you describe, but you cannot learn this alone here. It's very important for you to visit your anatomy book. Okay. All right, thank you so much. Should it happen that you wish to book me for any session, I can do that, and I can do as you wish in terms of how deep you want me to explain or teach you about the certain topic. So you just tell me the topic in anatomy, any part of the anatomy. I'll take you through in the pace that you want and in the depth of your wish. So please make sure you book me, and it can be for your test, for your exam, or for your practical exam, for anything, for any nursing module, professional practice, infection prevention, unit management, community. It's all up to you. Pharmacology, anything that you wish me to help you. But it is, of course, comes with some charges that we will discuss, or that I will tell you when you book. Otherwise, thank you so much, and good luck with your studies. We welcome you in the profession. If you are new, we wish you can make a very good nurse with love of the patient, and who serves patients as their first priority, rather than prioritizing salaries. So see you next time. Thank you. Bye.